Maybe we should have Josh read it since he's here today. We're good to go. All right. All right. I'm going to go ahead and call the Sherwood City Council regular meeting into order, June 6, 2023 at 7 p.m. And first thing we're going to do is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Sylvia, roll call.
Mayor Rosner.
Here.
Council President Mays.
Here.
Councilor Browse.
Here.
Councilor Young. Here. Councilor Scott.
Here.
Councilor Giles.
Here.
Councilor Stankey.
Here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we have approval of the agenda.
Mayor, mind if I would like to entertain or suggest we switch item 6 and item 7, just citizen comments and presentations, so we can let everybody see the awesome folks that we'll be seeing in the presentations.
I would second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to change the agenda to swap items 6 and 7. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes, so we will swap those two, and we have a lot.
Motion to approve the amended agenda. Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the agenda and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, council. All right. So we were on to the consent agenda. And bear with me because I'm going to read all this. Per council rules. So on the consent agenda tonight is we have items A through K.
M.
Nope. That's right. There's two hiding from me. So item A, approval of the May 16th, 2023 City Council meeting minutes. Item B, resolution 2023-035, reappointing Dorian Leibel, hopefully I got that right, to the Sherwood Traffic Safety Committee. Item C, resolution 2023-036, reappointing Jen Myers to the Sherwood Senior Advisory Board. Item D, resolution 2023-037, reappointing Lori Zwingli to the Sherwood Police Advisory Board. Thanks, Kim. Item E, resolution 2023-038, reappointing Lawrence O'Keefe to the Sherwood Police Advisory Board. Item F, resolution 2023-039, authorizing the city manager to sign an IGA with Willamette Water Supply System for broadband services. Item G, resolution 2023-040, declaring the need to acquire real property interests to complete the Highway 99 pedestrian overcrossing project. Item H, resolution 2023-041, authorizing the city manager to adopt the Washington County Multi-Jurisdiction Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. Item I, resolution 2023-042, authorizing the city manager to renew an IGA with the Oregon Department of Transportation for broadband infrastructure. Item J, resolution 2023-043, reappointing Bree Scrivener to the Sherwood Library Advisory Board. Item K, resolution 2023-044, reappointing Deb Dyers to the Sherwood Library Advisory Board. And the two hidden ones, item L, resolution 2023-045, reappointing Maggie Gearhart to the Sherwood Library Advisory Board. And finally, item M, resolution 2023-046, authorizing the city manager to sign the agreements with Washington County for a community development block grant for improvements to the Marjorie Stewart Senior Center.
I move consent. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, council. All right, so we're going to move right into presentations here. And first we have a proclamation. Pass that down. All right, so it's Robin Hood Festival is coming up, so we have a little proclamation here to celebrate that. I'll read it to you here real quick. So the Sherwood Robin Hood Festival, 2023, July 15th through the 16th. Whereas since 1954, the Sherwood Robin Hood Festival has been a long-standing tradition in the city of Sherwood, and whereas the Sherwood Robin Hood Festival Committee is made up entirely of volunteers from the community who have willingly given countless hours to make this a memorable and successful event for our community. whereas July 15th and 16th, 2023 have been set aside for the Sherwood Robin Hood Festival, Old Town Events and Parade, and whereas the International Archery Shoot between the Sylvan Archers of Sherwood, Oregon and in Nottingham, England will be held the 15th and 16th of July. Now therefore it be it resolved that I, Tim Rosner, Mayor, City of Sherwood, do hereby proclaim July 15th through the 16th, 2023 as Sherwood Robin Hood Festival Weekend in the City of Sherwood, and I call upon all citizens in the surrounding communities to participate fully in all the festivals, ceremonies, activities, and events. So, yes, so Sherwood Robin Hood Festival has just been a cornerstone for our community for since before I was born. So, it's that long ago.
Really,
The actual Robin Hood was
Really
here
long.
at that one, right?
Yeah, I get
I can't count that high.
Oh, thank you. I get asked a lot if Sherwood's named after the Sherwood Forest, and I have to answer yes, because that's the truth, and we love that. And I love the fact that the Nottingham, England will be participating with the Archers. It's just a wonderful event. It's been around for as long as I can remember. I moved here with my family in '77. I think it was going back then, so it's wonderful. Does anyone else want to say anything? No?
I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be awesome.
It's going to be awesome.
Best events anywhere.
And how exciting is it going to be for the new Robin Hood Plaza to be open and available
So
and
exciting.
being used for the Robin Hood Festival for the first time?
Yes. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone. You want to pass it down to Sylvia? All right. Our next item on presentations tonight is recognition of the 2023 Robin Hood Festival Maid Marian Court members. Awesome. So for this one, I think we're going to have all of council step in front for the
Right.
handshakes. And did you want to say something before we start? Okay. Awesome.
Get her-
Need to hand her Keith's microphone.
So if you want to grab the city manager's microphone, turn the thing green.
Perfect.
Voice.
Can everyone hear me? All right. Good evening, Mayor Rosner, Sherwood City Council members, those in the audience tonight, and Sherwood citizens watching at home. I am Jessica Mulkey, Assistant Chaperone for the Sherwood Robin Hood Festival's Maid Marian Court, and I am pleased to come before you tonight to present to you the 2023 Maid Marian Court. The fine young women of this court are very proud to have become this year's ambassadors of the city of Sherwood and of our community's festival. I would like to begin the court's presentation with our Maid Marian and her senior court. Paige Squires is a freshman at Sherwood High School, where she is involved with the Arrows dance team and the girls tennis program. Her favorite subjects have been some of the art classes as well as the business classes offered. Outside of school, she dances at Doty Performance Studio, hangs out with friends, and spends time with her family. She has a passion for piano and has been playing for around 7 years. Paige is looking forward to serving her community through the Maid Marian Court. She believes this is a unique experience not many people get the chance to participate in and couldn't feel luckier to be part of the court. Paige Squires. Sophie Fletcher is a freshman at Sherwood High School, where she is involved in choir, theater, and mixolydians. Outside of school, she loves to perform in local theater productions. Some of her favorite roles have been Matilda in VPA's Matilda Jr. and Annie in SFA's Annie. She has been in voice lessons since 2nd grade and has plans to study musical theater after high school. She loves to shop, hang out with her friends, and visit the Enchanted Forest. This will be Sophie's 4th year on the court, but the first year as a senior court member. She is looking forward to being a mentor to the junior court and all the activities of the Robin Hood Festival. Sophie Fletcher. Olivia Poehler is a freshman at Sherwood High School, where her favorite subject is biology. Olivia loves helping her community and has done multiple clothing and school supply drives for the Sherwood Share Center. Outside of school, she likes to play piano and spend time with her family. Olivia loves to travel and explore new places and cultures. She is very excited to be traveling to Japan this June. This will be Olivia's third year on the Maid Marian court, but first year on the senior court. She is excited to come back and be a mentor for the junior court since she had such a great experience when she was younger. Olivia Poehler. We also have one more on the senior court, but unfortunately she couldn't be here tonight, but it is Madison Dorsing. And then complementing our senior court this year, we have our adorable 2023 junior court representing the Sherwood Charter School, Hawksview Elementary, and Archer Glen Elementary. Madeline Riffenberg is a 5th grader at Hawksview Elementary School where she is involved in the Hawksview Choir and Helpful Hawks. Her favorite subjects are reading, writing, and art of all kinds. When she is not in school, she loves to play with her 2-year-old puppy, Finn. She spends a lot of outdoor time with friends and neighbors, and she loves to sing all the time at home. Madeline is also involved in the YMCA Swim League, Girl Scouts, and a dog show group, and has also recently been in Matilda the Musical. She hopes to one day be a great singer or actress. This is Madeline's first time on the Maid Marian court, and she is very excited to serve the community. Abigail Rowe is a 3rd grader at Hawksview Elementary where she is involved in Chess Club, Oregon Battle of the Books, and is a junior counselor for her after-school program, where she likes to organize fundraisers. Her favorite subjects are reading, writing, art, and music. Outside of school, she is a Girl Scout and gymnast. She also enjoys ice skating, playing with her sister, reading, and baking. She hopes to someday be a fashion designer living in Paris or a jewelry designer working with recycled ocean plastics. She is excited to join the Maid Marian court, help with community activities, and make new friends along the way. Abigail Rowe. Aylin Thompson is a 2nd grader at Archer Glen Elementary School. Her favorite subjects are STEM and music. Outside of school, Aylin loves walking her dog, Mr. Beasley, and playing with her friends. She has been involved in gymnastics and has achieved her blue belt in Taekwondo. Aylin loves animals and hopes to one day become a veterinarian. Aylin was on the Junior Maid Marian court last year and is extremely excited to be part of the festivities again this year. She loves making new friends and looks forward to serving her community and being a positive role model as part of the court again this year. Aylin Thompson. And we also have one more junior court, and she also couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, but that is Rylan Dorsing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our 2023 Maid Marian court. Can I get 3 cheers for these amazing girls who make up our court? Hip, 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 hurrah! Hip, hip, huzzah! Hip, hip, huzzah! Thank you, Mayor Rosner and City Council, for making the time to recognize our 2023 Maid Marian court. Woo-hoo!
We'll get out of the way so you don't wreck the photo.
Can you guys step up, actually?
Oh, okay.
They'll look closer. There you go. Good.
Very good. Oh, one more.
Anybody else?
Awesome. Good job.
Keep having fun.
All right. Yes, that's fine. Thank you. All right, that was amazing. So next on our presentation list is we're going to recognize the 2023 Oregon Mayors Association local winner for the If I Were a Mayor contest. This is a contest that a lot of mayors across the state participate in, and we have people apply for this at the grade school, middle school, and high school level. Tonight we're honoring our grade school winner. The grade school applicants had to put a poster together that talked about what they would do if they were the mayor of Sherwood. So we have with us tonight, Juliet. Are you up there? Could you come on up? Right there in that chair. And then see the little button on the front of that mic? Just press that till the light turns green. There you go. Awesome. How are you today? Good. Are you excited to be here? Awesome. Well, we love having you here tonight, and we really appreciate you applying for this. And oh, I should mention that the winner of this gets submitted to a statewide contest as well. So that we'll find out the results of probably here in the next month or so. So anyways, thanks for entering the contest. I loved your poster. Can you hold your poster up so everybody can see it? That's, yeah, so
Can you read the little clouds to us? I can't read that far away.
Install speakers around Old Town, to add new play equipment to parks, to make summer soccer meetups, to have free Popsicle Friday, put pumpkins around Old Town in the fall, and build bigger bike holders at parks.
bigger bike holders. So why do you think we need?
I want pumpkins.
I like the popsicle.
Popsicle Friday is amazing. Why do you think we need bigger bike holders?
Yeah, sometimes I go to the park and there's like a spot full, and I have to find a different spot.
Oh.
Do you lock your bike up?
Good job.
What was the first one? Speakers around Old Town?
Yeah, put like speakers on like lampposts at Old Town and play like cheerful music.
What's your favorite cheerful song?
Don't put me in that box, right? Lots of songs. That's great. I'm super excited to meet you and to see your poster. Great job. Good luck at the state level. Wow. Better vote for her, Mayor.
Well, of course.
Well, Sherwood does have some state governing
Yeah, so
people,
this,
so it is a good possibility.
But
it would be amazing. And for those of you who don't know, we also, Sherwood is the proud home of the kid governor this year and the youth governor. So it'd be nice to get the trifecta. So we'll go for that. So
But we are proud of you.
yeah, we'll get to that
Yes.
second.
Good job.
Yeah.
The
Did you
poster
have
was very nice.
Did you have anything else you'd like to tell us? Awesome. Well, thank you for coming here tonight and letting us ask some questions. But before you go, we have a few things we want to do. Are you ready for this? So, walk around here. So, it's an If I Was a Mayor contest, so you just go up there and meet Aaron.
Swap that one out. Tim's.
see that?
We gotta get rid of this one now. We gotta put this one in.
Yeah, go get in the crowd, Tim.
Hold it up so.
We got new leadership.
She's got the gavel now. Woo!
Hey, we get to go home early.
All right, we'll pose for a photo real quick. Tim, you can stand if you want. Ready? One, 2, 3.
Awesome.
Nice
Now,
job.
before you get up, I have a few goodies for you. So our friends at Langer's got some gift certificates and some
Hey.
certificate. And then, you like Dutch Bros?
Yeah.
So we got, so Dutch Bros got a nice flask and a whole bunch of gift cards for you.
Thank
Wow.
you.
There
Awesome.
you go. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
One more for mom over here.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, Mom.
Most important.
You're more than welcome to stay, but you also can sneak out.
So before you sneak out real quick, I just one thing I want to tell you real quick. So we'll get this put together, but we're going to get you a framed picture of you sitting up here with council, and we saved your little plaque, and that'll be in the picture too. So you can hang that on the wall. Thank you. All right, that was fun. All right, so next is our TVF&R annual presentation. You got a tough act to follow, I got to say. Come on up.
Juliet, you're going to make me work for this, aren't you? Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having me this evening. My name is Patrick Fail. I'm the Assistant Chief for Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. Before I get going this evening, I'd like to introduce some really influential members, absolute professionals that have impacted me and my career, and certainly my work life, and longstanding members of the organization. In the back is Captain Chad Ledson. He is your local station captain. And if, without providing him too much praise and giving him too big of an ego, I have to say he's probably one of the finest captains that we have. He's always on the side of right, and it's just tremendous. And we also have Battalion Chief Craig Moyson in the back, again, longstanding friend of myself, but an absolute professional. And someone that I think you all know very well is Lieutenant Rob Watson, heavily involved in this community and an absolute leader for our organization. And Lieutenant Watson, would you please introduce your crew real quickly? Go ahead, shout it out.
Firefighter Van Cohn, apparatus operator Tom Harrell, and firefighter Jimmy Davis.
Yeah. All senior members of our organization and highly decorated in their own right, serving your community. As we were putting this presentation together this year, we reflected on not only the number of new leaders we have within Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, but the number of new elected partners that we have without in the community. And we wondered if this was a unique opportunity to really share the mission and vision of Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. We are really committed to creating safer communities through prevention, preparedness, and effective emergency response. And those aren't just words. That's what we strive to do every day. To meet that mission, we just are nearly completed with a 5-year strategic plan to help us reach that goal. That plan will carry us through 2028 with the objective of health, performance, and opportunities. And let me advance that slide here so you can see. It's a simple guiding document that guides all leaders within the organization in the work that they do and formulation of their budgets as they work through what they need to do to make sure that the mission is met. I mentioned health. We're committed to advancing a healthy organization through a unified mission, effective communication, resilient people, and responsible resource management. Those are some of our founding principles. Obviously, we're a high-performing organization, and that's not going to change moving into the future. We're committed to advancing that high-performing organization with a particular focus on the core functions that make us great. And that's fast and effective emergency response, but with an eye on community risk reduction. That's going to be critical for us to move forward. We've seen a significant increase in calls for service over our 400 square miles that we serve. And we're going to have to put some effort into educating our communities to try to make safer environments and more livable communities for them to thrive in. And then opportunities. A large agency, we're faced with and we're blessed with many opportunities that come our way, but we also have to carefully evaluate those opportunities to see if they're responsible and sustainable, and if they're not, dismiss them and move on. So that's part of our strategic plan as well. I mentioned health of the organization and performance. Staffing and succession planning are at the top of our list. You're going to see a lot of new faces, myself included, in new leadership roles. As of April 2023, 63% of all of our upper-level managers, battalion chiefs, and captains are either on work back or retirement eligible. That is a staggering figure of senior leadership. In the past year, we've conducted promotional processes for lieutenants, captains, battalion chiefs, district chiefs, which is the position I just left. It's an operational chief, and my position of assistant chief. And we've promoted approximately 60 new leaders into position. And we couldn't be more proud of what the future has in store. They've been highly trained through our developmental processes, and they absolutely understand the mission and vision of the organization. Like cities and fire departments all around the nation, we are struggling to recruit. This is a phenomenon that especially Tuolumne Valley Fire and Rescue we're not used to, but we are responding quickly and decisively through expanded recruitment efforts, including social media blitz, mass media advertisements, and targeted outreach to attract more diverse candidates. Last week, we just graduated an academy of 22. They just went through a 16-week recruit academy, and we're not stopping there. We're starting another one in August of 2023. You're going to see continual 20-person plus recruit academies for the foreseeable future. We don't see it slowing at all, really. This next slide, I'm a little behind on slides, so we've recognized that some of our newest members also bring the most valuable opinions, especially when it comes to recruitment of new members. They just went through the process. They know where our holes are. They know where they would have liked to see improvement. And so we've empowered them to really move us forward in the realm of social media, advertisement, and attracting new members. So I'd like to show you a quick video of that now. If I can get it to play. Here we go. Maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. I was just hitting that space bar. Okay.
Left earlier.
It's a great video, I promise.
It literally played a minute ago, or before that. Can we power it down?
No, let's not go that far. We'll just move on. I'll set the scene for you. It's one of our newest firefighters coming down the pole, and she talks about basically where she's going, what she's doing. And then she stops in a conversational way and said, but is still moving, still putting on all her stuff, getting ready to go to a fire. And she clearly says, these are the things you need to do: gather your documents, get your training, take your test. We'll see you on this date. And it was a really pretty snappy way to attract some talent. So those type of initiatives will continue into the future. Really quickly, I'd like to give you a bond update. You'll see on the slide our priorities as we move through a bond that was approved in 2021. We really saw no increase in taxation to our customers, secondary to retiring the old debt of the previous bond. Our current projects are, we're looking at the location of Station 6-2 in Aloha, Beaverton area. We've held community meetings this previous March, and we're working through some land use with the county. Our training center that falls in Sherwood really hasn't changed since 1989. We have pumped hundreds and hundreds of recruits through that training facility, not only along with our career companies and our volunteer companies. It's in need of some repair. Especially our administration building, it's not seismically sound. We need to do some improvement there, and it's just not usable for the amount of volume that we're putting through there now. So a needs analysis is underway, and we look forward to what that training facility will be like in the future. Our next priority is the rebuild of King City. That's going to be a major rebuild. We have to go down to bedrock on that station to make sure that it's seismically sound. So that's going to be quite the process. We're looking at remodels of Beaverton and our Newburgh stations. For Station 33, it is also slated for a major remodel in 26-27 to essentially seismically upgrade, also improve livability for our firefighters, and really open it up for the possibility of a battalion chief relocation to that facility. Our next slide. We're a data-informed organization. We used to say we were a data-driven organization, but what that took out was really the common sense approach of what's actually happening on the ground. The data can give us a good picture, but it's not a complete picture. This data, if you notice on the left-hand side of your slide, shows a total incident count of 2,024. That's for Sherwood proper. That's not mutual aid to other areas, whether into Tualatin or King City, and that mutual support of those other cities from our Sherwood station. As you move through the data, you'll notice that 83% of all responses are medical in nature. That's normal standard for the industry. There's nothing out of line there. Approximately 6.7% are fires. A little reduction on that when you see situation found. And the rest are general hazards, service calls, and good intent. One of the things that I always like to do is, as you move down to hour of the day and day of the week, it's looking like at around noon in Sherwood on a Wednesday, a Friday, you need to steer clear. That's what that's showing. Sherwood certainly is busy. They are a key company to this area and providing service not only to Sherwood, but Tualatin, King City, and occasionally down into Newburgh. With new leaders, we're really thankful that we also have innovation. Up on this slide, you'll notice on the left-hand side of your screen, that's showing our MDC monitor, but what you see in the background is a large screen. The screen's much larger now, but this is our OTC, our officer training area. All command officers go through this, including myself. What we found in 2020 was we were really great at structure fires. We were really great at the emergencies that we ran. But as far as command and control, how we command the troops, we were not skilled at expanding that incident, especially on Chehala Mountain. So we took those lessons that we learned from there, and we didn't sit on our laurels, and we put some practice into place. All command officers, including our company officers, which is now starting to progress, go through a simulation where we really go over all hazards with a particular focus on how you appropriately scale the incident and keep accountability. And I will tell you that within the first 2 minutes, you forget you're in a simulation. It's very, very good. Upper right-hand portion of the screen is our Lucas device. These have been deployed to our transport units and some of our companies that aren't necessarily in the Corps. And these are saving lives. What it does is it really allows your crew to get a hands-off approach. It does perfect, absolutely perfect CPR, more perfect CPR than we can do. And we had our first cardiac arrest save secondary with the help of a Lucas device this past year. We're collaborating with companies such as Apple. We're in the process and have been for some time as being the beta test bed for a product, an app called Shield, which tracks our firefighter stress level, heart rates, and really gives them a report throughout the day of how they're doing through data, their anxiety levels, their levels of stress, and it gives them suggestions on how to mitigate that. We're excited, and we don't think the technology is quite there yet for being really useful for us, but we're hopeful that partnership will open up doors into the future as that technology matures. We're also working with a company called Emergent, and I mentioned our command and control, our battalion chiefs. Hopefully we'll deploy it very soon, but a command and control module that'll help us track our firefighters a little better, air consumption, time on task, things of that nature. That same program has been opened up to our inspection and also tracking of our apparatus. We do have a revenue sharing with that company, and we're working with them on a national launch coming soon. You might wonder why we would do that. We understand the importance of controlling our data for performance, and through this partnership, we were able to work that in where we absolutely have access to 100% of our data. So, next slide. You'll see here our total hours of training with roughly 450 operational personnel. There's a lot of training that occurs. One of the things that you might notice is approximately 80,000 of that, hours of that is non-EMS training, but the majority of our calls are EMS. The reason for that is strategically we've trained for high acuity calls, high risk, low acuity. Excuse me, I got that backwards. Our crews run a ton of EMS calls. Crews in the back can tell you they're really good at chest pain. They're really good at breathing problems. They're really good at abdominal problems. And so we focus on pediatric, cardiac arrest, stroke, major trauma, those things that they don't see all that time but are absolutely critical that they get right. Fires are also rolled into that. You saw that roughly 6% of our call volume is fires, but it's critical that we get that operation correct. There is no one else to call. We're it, so we have to get it right. Washington County update for the ambulance service area. I don't think it's any secret that we have been struggling with our ambulance service provider within Washington County for some time. The county fire departments, along with the county commission, got together and they stood up a small council, advisory council, to help inform the situation. This past summer and past year, a majority of the time we were in ambulance level 0. And what that means is there's no available ambulances within the county. The county fire departments answered the call. We stood up additional transport units to transport our customers off the scene, but we know that it was going to be a continuing problem. The county commission chose to end that evergreen contract with Metro West Ambulance and open an RFP process for a new ambulance service provider. Metro West competed, AMR competed, and several other companies competed as well. Ultimately, AMR won the contract and are currently in negotiations with the county. So we should see a new service provider sometime around August. I mentioned risk reduction and creating safer and more livable communities in the areas that we serve. And here's just some of the examples of that. In 2022, we covered 588 events and made contact of almost 30,000 of our customers outside of emergency incidents. Our deputy fire marshals and inspectors performed over 3,000 inspections of commercial buildings. Our fire investigators used their experience and influence at the state and national building code level to create safer construction and building features. We continue to conduct and did conduct multifamily housing landlord training sessions twice last year, and those have continued into 2023. We also have a virtual model now to reach more of those landlords. Large majority of our fires happen in multifamily dwellings, so the more that we can educate the landlords and the owners of those complexes, the safer our community is going to be. We are performing post-fire knock and talks during or post significant fire events, because that's when people are more apt to absorb the information, and we've held several of those and they've been really successful. We host an annual summit for hundreds of scouts to learn more about safety, and that one of those just concluded last week. The future of community risk reduction, we're really looking at mitigating 911 hotspots to reduce calls for service and improve that community safety, and I want to give you an example of that. El Monica Transit Station in the Beaverton area, the transit services shut down at the end of the line. Our houseless population, some of them ride it to the end of the line. At the end of the line, there's a phone. That phone you pick up and it automatically dials 911. They need services at that point. So we partnered with TriMet, other community nonprofits, the county, and the city to create a program where at the end of the line, there was individuals, volunteers there to help them navigate where they needed to go, get them services that they needed, and we've seen a significant reduction in calls. One thing that we're struggling with, those type of programs take constant maintenance and funding, and so we're working with the county and those other stakeholders to try to secure that, to keep that going. What happens is our crews continually respond there, and they're not available for other emergencies as they come in during that time frame from 11 to 2 is really our hotspot. When I talk about call reduction, that's really what we're talking about, identifying those hotspots, putting solutions in place that are more feasible than 911 and our apparatus and personnel. In 2024, we're going to go for a levy replacement. Our existing 45-cent levy expires in June of 2025. That levy currently funds firefighters, paramedics, some support personnel, and purchase of medical and firefighting equipment. Our current levy rate at 45 cents per thousand, we know will not sustain us moving forward. The cost of our service, everything that we've experienced in our own lives, and the cost of living has gone up across the board, the cost of materials and services, and we need to respond to that. We're currently conducting analysis to project future needs and understand our voter attitudes, and that survey just went out, I think, a couple of days ago. So you may get some calls if you're included in that 600 test group. And as always, we'll continue to communicate with you all as we get closer. A couple of things before I close out that I want to bring to your attention. We are excited about the Robin Hood Festival. We'll be providing our antique apparatus again this year for that. And bring this to your attention. It's always very exciting when we do this every year, but July 21st through the 23rd will be our Portland Metro Fire Camp. This is where we bring 50 young women into the training center for a 3-day immersive experience into being a firefighter. They range from ages from 16 to 22, and it's ran by our female firefighters and metro area firefighters. We even get some female firefighters from California and other states that come in to help. And I've witnessed it several times, and it's absolutely tremendous experience to watch their confidence increase through leadership, watch each of them become leaders in their own right. It's a pretty tremendous program. So we're excited to have that in your city and at the training center, and we're very proud of it. And I am done talking. So I'm happy to field any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you so much for coming out and giving this annual report. That was awesome. I always learn a ton during these, and some of your numbers mirror the when I did my ride-along and my overnight. We went on a lot of EMS type calls. So, yeah. Any questions from council?
I had one. It sounds like, so when the Sherwood building gets renovated completely, where do the firefighters go or stay during that period of time? Are they still going to be here?
Well, generally, hopefully we have enough room on that property. The logistics director works with her team to figure out where that is. As we get closer, if there's not enough room on the property to put a temporary station, we're going to a different style. We used to do mobile homes, but now we're doing a little more robust. It almost looks permanent, but basically you put it on, it folds up, and does all this stuff. But hopefully it'll be in a similar location. If not, we'll work with the city. We'll work with other landowners to see if we can temporarily place a station somewhere in close proximity. Our pin drops where that station needs to be based off of call volume, so it will be probably in close proximity to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Appreciate your service to our community and the region. Good. You have a high standard. You are a very professional organization, and we're grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And thank you thank you for coming out tonight. And also thank all the other firefighters that are here tonight listening in. Do they all like listening to you?
Well, I don't know if they like it, but they're sure going to judge me. So.
Awesome. Thanks
Thank
again.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
A moment, I'm gonna swap my chair out. It's a little too tall for my feet.
Yes, we can take a moment. Yeah, go for it.
I'm a broken chair tonight. It's a little bit too tall for me.
While we're getting that taken care of, I've noticed a lot of people picking up forms for public comment. So if you have those and you want to give public comment, if you could give them to Sylvia, our city recorder here, I would appreciate it. All right. Yeah. All right. So now we are on to item 6, which usually comes before 7, but we reversed all that tonight. And just a reminder, so we have several ordinances that we're going to be talking about tonight, and we will have public comment during those conversations. So if you're here to talk about those ordinances, we'll be talking about it at that point. For anything else, Sylvie, do we have any comments?
No, Mayor, I do not.
That's all for the ordinances, what you got? Okay, great. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to public hearings. We have three public hearings tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to Sylvia to read us into that.
The Sherwood City Council will hold public hearings this evening on 3 items on the agenda. Ordinance 2023-005, approving a minor land partition of tax lot 400 of Washington County Assessor Map 2S129CD, and an amendment to the city's general plan and zoning map to rezone the plus 3.3 acre portion of the site to high-density residential HDR from retail commercial RC. This is the second hearing before the City Council on this item. The next item on the agenda, this is the first hearing, is Ordinance 2023-006, adopting the Sherwood 2023 Economic Opportunities Analysis Update as a sub-element of the Comprehensive Plan, and Ordinance 2023-007, adopting the Sherwood Camping Code, Chapter 9.54. The public hearings this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present a staff report, questions, if any, by the City Council for staff. We will then receive written testimony. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and the time will be limited to 4 minutes per person. Any interested person may present testimony. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the council, followed up by council discussion. For Ordinance 005, this is the second hearing before the City Council on this item. A decision may be made by the council at the close of this hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this is the only notice of that date you will receive. For all 3 items, for the other 2 items, this is the first hearing before the City Council on these items. Generally, the council will hold 2 hearings prior to making a decision. A second hearing on the other 2 items is currently scheduled for the June 20th meeting. However, in accordance with the city charter, council reserves the right to make a decision at the close of this hearing by a unanimous vote of all sitting council members. If you wish to speak, please fill out a request to speak form and submit it to the city recorder prior to the time the public hearing is open for testimony. The mayor will recognize people who wish to speak, and any comments must be addressed through the mayor. When you come forward, please state your name and place of residence for the record, as this hearing will be recorded.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. So we'll go ahead and get started with our first ordinance, 2023-005, and I believe, Joy, you're going to be presenting tonight.
That is correct. Good
Awesome.
evening. Mayor Rosner, Joy Chang, Senior Planner with the Planning Department. Again, this is the second hearing in front of you for Land Use 2023-005, which is a zone change in addition to a minor land partition. And again, council first heard the hearing on May 16th. So the applicant proposes a 2-lot partition to create a 3.3 acre parcel with a subsequent zone change for the 3.3 acre parcel from retail commercial to high density residential. The parcel is located along Southwest Langer Drive. This is a type 5 application because it is a zone change, and the Planning Commission made a recommendation of approval to City Council. Site location, as you can see from this slide, the site is the Sherwood Plaza Center, located along Southwest Langer Drive, south of Oregon Highway 99W. The site is improved with the Sherwood Plaza Shopping Mall and associated commercial entities. The 3.3 acre eastern portion of the property is vacant, currently just a grassy field. This portion of the site is envisioned for the zone change to high density residential. The site has direct access to Southwest Langer Drive, and the portion site will have access to Langer, or the partitions portion will have access to Langer Drive through an easement as proposed. The site is, again, as far as zoning, the site is identified on this slide with a star and is zone retail commercial, reflected in the red coloring. The properties north and west of the site are also zone retail commercial, and the land use is consisting of retail shops, restaurants, fast food, service stations, hair and hair salons, etc. The properties to the east are zoned high-density residential with a PUD overlay with land uses of attached townhomes and apartment complexes. The properties to the south are zoned high-density PUD and retail commercial PUD with land uses consist of residential care facility and an apartment complex. This slide reflects the proposed zone change. As you can tell, there's two partitions, parcel 1 with the existing complex, and then parcel 2, the vacant parcel that is proposed to be high-density residential instead of retail commercial. As reflected here, the separation is pretty much the back of the existing Sherwood Plaza. So the applicable criteria for a zone change consists of 4 elements: the comprehensive plan, statewide planning goals, transportation planning rule, and various segments of our community development code as reflected on this slide. Uses for retail commercial pretty much are general retail stores, restaurants, medical businesses, and professional offices. A multifamily is permitted, subject to all of the following on this slide, but the key is the housing units are only permitted on 1 or more of the upper floors, where the ground floor non-residential use must occupy the entire ground floor with a few exceptions for a lobby, utilities, and elevators. Site plan review is required in regards to any land use or any proposal on the site. Maximum density is similar to high-density residential zone and so forth. In regards to high-density residential zone, the HDR, it provides for higher density multifamily housing and other related uses with densities of 16.8 to 24 dwelling units per acre, with, of course, the exception of middle housing types pursuant to 16.12.010F. Again, this slide reflects the criteria for a plan amendment or a zone change. It has to be consistent with goals and policies of the comp plan and the transportation system plan. There is an existing and demonstrable need for the particular uses and zoning proposed. The amendment is timely, and other lands in the city already zoned for the proposed uses are either unavailable or unsuitable. In addition to this, it has to be consistent with the transportation planning rule, and the applicant has demonstrated consistency with the TPR, specifically by addressing whether the proposed amendment creates a significant effect on the transportation system pursuant to the OAR, and if a traffic impact analysis, a TIA, needed to be prepared for this proposal. So, demonstrable need and timeliness. As you're aware, the housing needs analysis concluded that Sherwood has a deficit of approximately 608 homes in its 20-year supply. Of those 608, there's a deficit of 145 high-density residential units. Per the housing needs analysis, the city's supply of HDR, high-density residential land, is very limited, with 17 vacant acres of HDR, and supports the ongoing need for residential land at all densities, including the HDR zoning. Alternative sites are limited due to availability, annexation requirements, and infrastructure needs specific to the Brookman area. The need for the HDR zone, again, the housing needs analysis concluded that Sherwood has a deficit, again, of 608 homes, and there's a deficit of 145 high-density residential units. The economic needs analysis by Johnson Economics identified the following: that there are challenges to retail use, particular in this site. Multifamily development is a common transition found at the borders of residential and commercial areas with proper buffering. This mixed-use building type is highly infeasible in its location due to increased cost of development and low chances of success for a ground floor use. And the study also of employment lands needs forecasts slow growth in retail space demanding in coming years, and a likely surplus of retail commercial zone land to accommodate it. So the transportation system plan found that based on the proposed zone change from retail commercial to high density residential, it found that there's not going to be a significant impact in the transportation system plan. There's actually going to be fewer vehicles with the high density residential compared to retail commercial. With the zone change, the traffic volume remains consistent with the city's adopted TSP. And ODOT, Oregon Department of Transportation, did review the application and did review the applicant's transportation planning rule analysis and concurs that there will be reduction in trips and will not have any significant impact to Highway 99W. So this slide reflects the criteria for partitioning. It definitely, the site has to comply with applicable zoning requirements such as size, depth, width, and also setbacks, especially with an existing structure on parcel 1. It requires dedication of all public required common improvements in areas including but not limited to streets, park, floodplain, sanitary sewer, stormwater, water supply system. And of course, the existing mall does have all of that, and anything that may encroach on parcel 2 has been conditioned or it's not an issue in regards to partitioning. Especially adequate water, sanitary sewer, and other public facilities exist to support, again, the proposed use of the partition land, and adjoining land can be developed or provide access that will allow future development in accordance with the code. Definitely the site itself, future development ability can happen just because parcel 2 is currently vacant. I do know some of the testimonies that were emailed to you, there were a total of 9, had concerns in regards to the partition and addressing access. And I do want to let you know that parcel 2 at this point in time is not proposing any development. And definitely access with a new land use application for site plan will dig into the requirements as far as the access points. But in order for the partition to happen, it must prove that access can be provided. And again, there is frontage on this parcel off of Southwest Langer Drive, so any future development could access off of Langer's Drive. In addition to that, there is a very specific condition that requires an access easement from an existing driveway just east of parcel 1 that is required to be shared with the future development of parcel 2. But again, just...
You mean the access on the eastern edge of parcel 1?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, we routed 2 effective agencies back in April and, provided comments and rolled them in within the written staff report. We did send public notice to property owners within 1,000 feet of the site. We posted the site of the property and in 5 locations throughout the city. We published it in the Times twice as required by our code. We did, again, receive several public comments from Southwest Holland Lane residents, a total of 9. And when we were receiving those through the recorder's office, we did make sure that those were all copied to you. Again, several public testimonies on the proposal emailed, all from residents from Southwest Holland Lane as reflected on this image. Concerns consisted of future access to Southwest Holland Lane and its impact to their community. Keeping their concerns is, helping keep their integrity of their community, the increase of pedestrian and vehicle traffic, possibly increasing parking congestion on Holland Lane. Creation of the new parcel should address specific access to the site. In addition to those testimonies that were received, additional public testimony can also be accepted at tonight's public hearing. So council alternatives, as far as choices you can make tonight, you can approve the applications based on the findings and conditions in the Planning Commission's recommendation. You can approve the application with modified findings and conditions. You can, of course, also deny the application with modified findings. Staff respectfully recommends approving the application and adopting ordinance 2023-005 based on the findings included in Exhibit 1 to Ordinance 2023-005. That concludes my presentation and can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Joy. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Do we have
I have
any
a question.
questions? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
on the conditions. So you mentioned there's one condition that you mentioned clearly, which was that the newly partitioned site is required to have an easement to access through the original site to the street. Are there any other conditions that have been included besides that one?
There's, of course, definitely, there's lots of conditions in regards to the zone change as far as the general conditions, but also prior to recording of the final plat, because again, this is not just a zone change, it is a partitioning. And I can read all of them.
I mean, I guess I would just say, obviously there's a lot of technical things that are required. I'm talking about from a layman's term, if you will, right? Like what we've clearly stated, there's a condition that Site 2 has to be granted an easement of access through Site 1. We all are aligned on that. Are there any other things outside of the normal blocking and tackling, minutia, if you will, that need to be called out?
No, many of the conditions are specific to utilities.
Thank you.
I have a question about, if you want to go back, I think it's 2 slides. So several of the comments that were, right, nope.
One more.
Right there, perfect. So we're concerned about opening up, there's a blockade at the end of Holland Drive or whatever. That is not a part of this at all, right? That's part of when they submit the design for, hey, here's what we want to build on this place, that will be part of the design then, right?
That is absolutely correct. There is no proposal on the table in regards to the parcel to the vacant portion.
Right. So, yeah. So that's just a future concern of some of that's to be addressed. The question we're answering right now is, can we rezone this high-density residential? It has nothing to do with whether or not Holland goes through, or whether there is a park on the place, or you know what I mean, like any of that stuff. That's
the criteria does not. The only criteria that deals with transportation is making sure that the transportation planning rule. And again, the applicant has satisfied that, where the trips are less in comparison to a retail commercial use.
And for clarification for people listening, the transportation planning rule about trips is really about the trips that site generates out in the region.
Correct.
Right.
As far as in the region.
It's not about local flow of traffic.
Exactly.
Also, just to clarify too, because in the language it states that the residential use would generate fewer trips than the commercial use, and so I think it needs to be made clear that the potential commercial trips that would have been generated on this site had it developed commercially are X, and that number is less than X in a residential zone. Obviously there's going to be new trips because there's nothing there now. Compared to an empty field, it's more trips. Compared to what would be there if it was built out commercially, it's less trips. I think that needs to be clarified, I think.
And the original planning for that area included those potential trips.
Right. So the roads leading to the site have already been built out to accommodate the commercial trips. Now there'll actually be less residential trips.
Right.
Yes, if it's rezoned, yes. One other clarification. So when, assuming this gets passed, if it does, at some future point, a developer would come forth with the site plan proposal for the site. That obviously will go through a completely different public planning process, right?
Correct.
And that process will definitely go to the planning commission, or almost. I mean, I know it will, but Is there a scenario where it might not? No, no scenario. Okay. So,
It will most likely, depending on the number of units on that site, it will go through the planning commission and will go through the required public notice.
so there'd be a community meeting.
Neighborhood meeting
Neighborhood meeting
first.
first, then when it gets, if and when it got to planning commission, there would be at least one public hearing, if not multiple.
Right, and notice again would go out to individuals within 1,000 feet. We'll post the site. We will post throughout the 5 community billboards that we typically do, and we will put it in the newspaper again in regards to the actual land use application for the future development that the applicant may propose.
Thank you.
And again, I don't know when that would be, but this is the first step in regards to being able to develop.
And at that point in time, there's all kinds of options on the table.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
So it's a public hearing, no matter what. In theory, if they put through a just straight a site plan request that met all the criteria as written, you could go to a hearings officer, still be a public hearing. But in most scenarios that we've seen of this type, it would almost certainly end up at planning
It
commission.
depends on the size,
Yeah.
but
Of the proposal. Right, it could either be a planning hearings officer, which is a type 3, or a type 4, which will be in front of the planning commission.
I don't know that we've ever seen anything this size go through a hearings officer, but I could be wrong.
And depending on what they're asking for and how it's applied, it could even come to the council after planning commission.
Yeah, if it's a
Want something
PUD,
extra
which
special,
is
yeah.
pretty likely.
Yeah. Any other questions for staff?
No, at this point.
Great. I think we got through the written stuff. Do we have any additional written materials? Okay. All right, so this time we're going to open up the public hearing. And as a reminder for folks, this is a chance for anyone to comment on the, I'm sorry, Joy, go ahead.
Would you like to hear from the applicant?
Oh, well, sorry, we forgot that step, didn't we? Yeah. That was, in my furious note-taking, I missed that one, sorry. Yeah, so we're not opening the public hearing yet.
Hearing's been opened.
Oh, yeah, but go ahead and we'll have the applicant speak first.
They couldn't talk if it wasn't open.
Right.
All right, good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Marie Holliday with AKS Engineering, and I'll be presenting on behalf of the applicant. For the record, my address is 12965 Southwest Herman Road, Tualatin, Oregon, 97062. And are you able to see my screen?
Not yet. Something's going, there it is. Yes, we can see your screen.
So up for your consideration this evening is the zoning map amendment and partition for the Sherwood Plaza. And this project was a culmination of efforts on behalf of the applicant, Six Corners LLC. Again, my name is Marie Holliday with AKS Engineering. We also have our civil project engineer, Darko Simic here. On the line, we have Chris Bremer with Kittleson and Associates, who prepared the transportation planning rule analysis. And also on the line, we have Brendan Baker with Johnson Economics, who provided the economic study for the project. So, Joy provided a very thorough overview of the project, so I'll go ahead and stay brief so that we can discuss some of the public comments here this evening. Again, the property is located along the south side of Southwest Linger Drive, southeast of Highway 99. This project involves a 2-parcel partition. Again, that application is a type 2 application, and it was bundled with this so that only the east side of the property would be involved in the zone change application. And again, there will be a future site plan review to assess any on-site improvements. So here again is an overview of the preliminary partition. You can see the new partition, or the new parcel is shown in purple on the east side of the site. Access is again provided through a 40-foot easement through parcel 1 on the south side of Linger Drive. Here's the preliminary partition plat approval criteria. Joy went through all of these. In your staff report, you can see the staff findings provided that the application met all of the approval criteria. So the real meat of the application is, again, the zoning map amendment. You can see on the left side of the screen, the existing zoning is retail commercial. Generally, north and west of the site is continued commercial development, again, retail, restaurants, other commercial entities. On the right side of the screen, you can see parcel 2, shown there with HDR zoning, future high-density residential. Again, to the south and east of the site is residential development, including attached townhomes, multifamily, a congregate care facility. The application also included a conceptual site plan. This was not required, but it's good to see what could conceptually be built on the site. It shows, again, a shared access from Southwest Langer Drive, and the provision of any public improvements will, again, go through that site plan review process, including design standards, setbacks, architectural materials, everything like that. The zoning map amendment approval criteria were also discussed in your staff report. I believe it was on page 188 of the large council packet this round. Staff went through, again, in great detail, all of the approval criteria. The project is consistent with the comprehensive plan goals and policies as was provided in the narrative. The use complies with the transportation planning rule. Again, that report was prepared by Kittleson and Associates, and it shows that what could be built on site with the current retail commercial zoning would provide greater trips than this application. So changing the site to high density residential would incur less trips. The meat of the amendment approval criteria are in that section 16.080B, and these go through criteria involving the need for housing in Sherwood. Over 600 total residential units are lacking currently in the city's housing needs analysis. This site is a really good use for a multifamily development. It's compatible with the land use pattern and character of the area. You can see that there's a lot of walkable amenities around, and it does set the stage to provide this needed housing. As Joy mentioned, the project received 9 public comments in total, and all of those were regarding site access. And this application does not endorse approval for any means of access for any specific site plan. The conceptual site plan that was submitted with the application materials just shows you what could be anticipated on site. A future site plan review will involve a neighborhood meeting, and everyone who received notice for the initial neighborhood meeting will again receive it if you're in 1,000 feet of the site. You can also get information specifically from our project team. My information will be on the screen at the end of this meeting if you're interested in future meetings. That application will also go through the public hearing process as we just discussed, and all of the criteria will be demonstrated to be met, including site access. So at the time of future site plan review, a transportation impact study will be prepared, and that will discuss the site access, trip generation, and site circulation. And Chris Bremer with Kittleson is on the line who can answer any questions regarding any future transportation documentation. The applicant concurs with city staff that site access should be determined through the site plan process, and when an application for a proposed use and relative TIS is submitted, it makes more sense to get down that access. So with that, in closing, the applicant concurs with the city staff findings and conditions of approval in the staff report. The applicant also concurs with the Planning Commission's recommendation of approval, and we would respectfully request your approval this evening. And our team is available for any questions now.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant?
Very well presented.
No questions? Great, thank you so much. So at this point, we'll take public comment, and I have one person, and I'm going to get your last name wrong, Michelles? Did I get that wrong? Okay. So is there a way you're coming up here as a reminder for everyone during public comment? As Sylvia pointed out at the beginning, you have 4 minutes, and generally this is not a time for back and forth. This is just a chance for you to let us know what you think.
Okay.
So go ahead and state your name and your address.
My name is Michelle, and my address is 16251 Southwest Holland Lane. So I live directly at the end of Holland Lane, directly across from that grassy area or lot. And as you can imagine, I understand this is an application to change the zoning, but I have two young, small children, and our backyard and our home is very small, so our children play outside, and as you guys are aware, or it was mentioned that there's a barricade at the end of our street on Holland Lane. So our primary concerns, if the application was approved to change this to high density residential, is there was mention in one of the prior meetings that I had listened to that one, the intended access for would be that shared driveway behind, I think it was parcel 1. That's the intended access for it, and then Southwest Langer, which the entrance is Southwest Langer in parcel 1, sorry. There's already an increased amount of traffic on Southwest Langer now, so I can only imagine what the traffic will be like if an apartment complex is built there. The other concern that we had is the easement that runs directly, down. It's basically a second entrance for the Sunfield Apartments, which runs along where that barricade is. So our primary concern for us and my family was just, we don't want that barricade removed. Basically playing outside is my kid's livelihood right now, so we really don't want that removed. But in addition, just having an apartment complex there as well, we're worried about increased foot traffic in our community, as well as noise. Parking right now, I know it has been mentioned a lot, but it's already an issue in our community on Southwest Holland Lane. If you have family members come over now, there's no parking on Southwest Holland Lane. Even us homeowners have issues with parking on Holland Lane. So that was one of our big concerns as well. And as you can imagine, when you purchase a home, you don't really purchase it with the thought of your view ending up being an apartment complex right outside of your window. So those are just, I wanted to voice my concerns, and that's really it. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Is there anyone else that wants to give public comment on this ordinance? All right, so we will close the public hearing, and we got final comments. So for public comments is not questions. If you want to give comments about the ordinance, we're more than happy to listen to that, but we generally don't get into back and forth questions during public comment. I'm sorry, if you have questions, you can address them to staff, or you can email any of us after the meeting, but for public comments, we don't take questions, we just listen to the comments.
I want to hear more clearly about what you discussed about the barricade on Holland. What is the result? What are you going to, how's that being resolved?
So again, if you want to give public comments, we don't take questions during.
The councilman was addressing that. I didn't hear clearly what his answer was.
Okay, we can readdress that when we open it up. Just wait till we close the hearing.
So let's close it, and I can restate the answer.
So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and we have final comments. So if you want to restate what you were saying,
Yeah,
Taylor,
so I was addressing the concern about that barricade being taken down, and the answer that I heard from the presentation was that is not being decided tonight. That is a future plan that will be applied for. And by the way, even though it's high-density residential, it doesn't. I mean, that area. I lived in those Sunfield apartments, right? I know that area very well, and it could be an apartment building. It could be. I mean, that area currently is all high-density residential, right? And so that is a problem for another night to solve. whether the barrier is there now or the flow and traffic flow, that's the answer that I heard from planning
Yeah,
commission.
and to be clear, there is no plan right now.
Right,
That will be
exactly.
a discussion when the site plan application is put in.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
public process.
Or if it is.
If it is, yeah, it's one of those things that is, we just have to do these things in order, and right now, there's nothing, we can only argue about imagination, right? There's no actual thing to discuss.
The process would be, assuming the zone change goes through, at some point in the future, which might be tomorrow, or it might be 10 years from now, the property owner will submit an application, a site plan application to the city. The site plan application will say, here's what we intend on doing. Right now, we have no official intention from the applicant, right? At that point in time, there will be a neighborhood meeting, there'll be notices sent out, there will be a public hearing among either at a hearings officer or the planning commission, where all of these things will be litigated and heard from, and everyone will have a chance to give their input on things they like about the plan, things they don't like about the plan, normally, and all of that. And by the way, even before it gets to the planning commission and the public hearing, staff and the applicant will work back and forth on fine-tuning the plan for usually months, or at least a month, a long time. And then it'll get to a public hearing, everyone will have a chance to weigh in, and then those decisions get made at that point in time.
Any other? So we've closed the public hearing. Thank you for that clarification for everyone out there. They are important issues, and we do take them very seriously.
And if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sidebar.
Go for it.
If folks anywhere in town have problems with parking in their neighborhood or on their street, we have been supportive as a city of trying to find solutions with your circumstance. Sometimes it means an additional parking plan where you have, folks agree to have parking permits or other things. You're in in Holland, and that neighborhood is in an HOA. If you're actively managed HOA, there's possibility of working with them. Because yes, parking in general around town, when I was mayor before Tim for a number of years, it is the biggest stressor in any neighborhood, and it's a challenge, and it's only going to become more of a challenge with different rules that are coming down for potential like Sherwood West and other areas. So we want to help when people have parking challenges, either to work with your HOA, work with your neighbors, or some other level. So take that to heart, please.
Anything else? Dan?
Yeah, although the access to future development is not being debated tonight, I'm happy that the citizens have commented on it so that the developers are aware of this for future development. It is a big issue for the people on Holland Lane, and I'm really glad that so many people were able to make their comments known. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I can tell you before I was even on city council, we had a similar conversation about my street and a development going in behind our cul-de-sac, and there was concerns about a road being punched through. And in that case, it was a hearings officer, and they listened, and they even put a condition in there as part of the approval that the road can't punch through. So you'll have an ear at the city on your concerns, and we'll do our best to address them. And Keith, our council president, brought up there are, on the parking issue, talk to us, there's other ways we can address it. Like Keith brought up earlier, when the high school went in, we had a lot of problem with high school kids parking over in Woodhaven. And we did parking permits over there, and that helped solve the problem for the residents that live there. So there's a lot of solutions, a lot of things we can do. So, talk to us about that. So, anything else? Go ahead. Discussion.
Hearing's closed.
Okay, nobody's discussion.
So I was just going to thank all those that did send us emails. I read all of them, and I think you make some valid points, valid concerns, and so hopefully stay in tune with what's going on. And the applicant left her phone number if you guys have any questions there. But definitely, when you get word that there's going to be a community meeting, attend your community meeting, talk to the developers. I found we have a lot of developers who do listen and want to try to come up with solutions that are amiable to everybody. So I just encourage everybody to.
But just as you hint, folks that live on Holland, it was the original intent when that neighborhood was built was it would be extended as a road. That is why it's designed that way. That's why there's the barrier that way. So not to do that, there has to be some good reason. So I mean that is normal. There are many roads in this town that get built, that get stubbed, and then at a future point when more development occurs, the roads extend. So your concerns are important to hear, they're valid, but to be aware of what the normal intent is. And we have rules that we have to follow that are from Metro when it comes to transportation connectivity that may or may not be applicable here. So be involved. You are, continue to be involved. That's important. I'm assuming that this change happens, or if it doesn't happen, a different project goes in there because it can be developed without this change as a commercial, a potential commercial project.
So, can I bring us back to the here and now?
Yeah. Go for it.
So, putting aside all of these very valid future concerns about the site plan development, which will be heard at a future date, presumably. Getting back to this, what we talked about, this particular zone change and partition request. I think we all talked about this a little bit at our first hearing 3 weeks ago. You know, as 20 plus years have shown us, the site will not develop as it's currently zoned. I think it's pretty evident to anybody who understands planning and zoning and how developments occur. It's just it's burdened to where commercial will never go in there. So we've got 20 years of history that proves that it's not viable in that current use in the way it's zoned, especially after the change was made to disallow high density residential in the first floor of commercial a couple years back. So to me, this is the highest and best use of this property. It makes sense with the surrounding neighborhoods, which are also high density residential, for this property to be zoned high density residential and potentially get developed into much needed housing, and quite frankly, much needed high density residential housing, which we have a serious lack of in Sherwood. So I'm in favor of the zone change and the partition for those reasons. I think it just makes common sense that we should allow this property to develop to its highest and best use throughout the planning process, which will include tons of community engagement and feedback, and hopefully end in a result that is great for Sherwood and for the neighbors of that. And I know, having served on planning commission and knowing a lot of the people on planning commission, assuming they hear this out someday, a site plan for this someday, they are very concerned with making sure new development fits in with the neighbors. They talk about it at every hearing I've ever been to. So I have confidence that the planning process will drive us in some future site plan result to a result that is going to be agreeable to the neighborhood. So I'm in support of this.
Thank you, Doug. Dan, did you want to?
I just share similar sentiments that the site has not been developed for however long it's been there, and we do need the high-density residential here in Sherwood, so I am in support of the zone change and the partition.
Everything's been stated, but to the point that Doug just made, I think that's probably the hope, is that land there doesn't get developed, knowing that it's not good for commercial. But I too stand behind the desire to develop the land and make it housing, because we do have a shortage of housing, specifically high density. A case in point maybe to share, I had a conversation with one of our local police officers the other day who was saying they protect and serve us on a daily basis, but they can't live in Sherwood because of the lack of housing. So something to consider. We need more housing, and this is an opportunity to bring more housing in.
I am also in favor of this. I would add, I do believe it's a design issue, and it can be designed so that it is safe. I believe that it can be designed so that it is family friendly, traffic friendly, and things like that. In fact, I would even hope that, potentially your children's best friends move into that neighborhood, and it makes it so that it's actually a better place. I'm for young families being able to move into our area because we have such beautiful schools, and I want them to stay filled for the next 20 years. And so I have own members of my family that cannot afford to live in Sherwood, and we need this kind of thing to help get those young families in. So I'm in favor of this zone change.
Kim?
Also in favor, to all reasons said.
Yep, I concur with all the points, and I am optimistic that if and when there's an application to develop it, that it is works well with the neighborhood, and there might even be an amenity or two that the neighbors would be able to, maybe even a larger, play structure, so kids that are not playing in the street, maybe they're playing in a play structure very close by. We definitely don't want kids playing in the streets. Yeah, so I'm in favor.
Mr. Mayor, may I add something real quick?
Yes.
I'm struck by this community outreach in a really positive way. So many times we've seen developments happen where it's so far down the track, right? And it's at Planning Commission or it's at City Council, and somebody finds out about it and everybody shows up, and it's so hard to change things at that point. It's so much harder to change things at that point in time, and particularly in this case, where a developer by that point in time has expended an incredible amount of time and money and resources on a plan, right? And then they hear these things for the first time. It's like, wow, it's really hard to change the plan. I mean, I'm going to not speak for the developers, but I'm going to think maybe like they're thinking is the fact that they're hearing this feedback tonight before they put a site plan application in, assuming they want to be good neighbors, and I have every belief that they do, that gives them input into that process of how they're going to go about designing the site plan and putting it in the future. And them having that input now is much better than them getting it when it gets to a hearings officer or a planning commission meeting. So again, I'm not speaking for them, but I would imagine that they would be encouraged by getting this feedback this early in the process, where it actually can maybe drive more change than it could be if it happened later in the process. So I'm really encouraged by the fact that everyone's here to speak up, because I think it's so important. The earlier in the process we get the feedback, the better the result ends up being. Sorry.
That's okay. It was well said. I haven't had a chance to talk yet. You want to make motions already?
You've just asked all of us. You're just going to say the same thing.
Yes, what they said. But I want to reinforce what Doug said, because I've seen it over and over again. Just massive kudos to all of you that came here, either sent us written testimony or talked tonight, or here to lend moral support to your neighbors who did talk tonight. It's so true. There's so many. This is the time to be talking. This is the time to be getting involved. There's been so many cases where that public finds out too late, to where we can make material changes in the plan. So I appreciate everyone here tonight and their public comments. I too am in support of making the zoning change, and everything they said, I think, was well said by the rest of council. So at this point, unless there's more public comment, now we can do a motion.
I move we read, caption, adopt ordinance 2023-005, approving a minor land partition of tax lot 400 of Washington County Assessor Map 2S129CD, and the amendment to the city's general plan, the zoning map to rezone the plus or minus 3.3 acre portion of the site to high density residential from retail commercial.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Sylvia, roll call.
Ordinance 2023-005, approving a minor land partition of tax lot 400 of Washington County Assessor Map 2S129CD, and an amendment to the city's general planning and zoning map to rezone the 3.3 acres of acre portion of the site to high-density residential, HDR, to retail commercial, RC. Counselor Stankey, how do you vote?
Aye.
Counselor Giles?
Aye.
Counselor Scott?
Aye.
Counselor Counselor Young,
Aye.
Counselor Browse,
Aye.
Council President Mays,
Aye.
and Mayor Rosner.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. We have the ordinance. Thank you, everyone, for that. Thank you, everyone who showed up tonight for that. We have two more ordinances to talk about. If you're not interested in those, feel free to leave. No one's going to worry about that. Our second ordinance is adopting our 2023 Economic Opportunity Analysis Update. So we will start with staff presentation. This is first reading. Erica.
All right.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Councilors. So tonight before you is an ordinance to adopt a refinement to our economic opportunities analysis. And I know we just adopted the economic opportunities analysis not too long ago in 2021 as part of our comprehensive plan update, but we have a lot of aspirational goals for job growth and job development within the community. And so we just kind of wanted to dust it off and make sure that it's hitting all the marks for council goals and job growth. So tonight's purpose, we'll review just a quick overview of Goal 9, which is economic development. And then I'll briefly talk about what has changed from the 2021 EOA. And I'll talk about the employment and land forecast, the buildable lands inventory, and some of the conclusions. And then you can consider Planning Commission's recommendation to adopt. But this is the first reading tonight. We do have a second reading scheduled for June 20th. So with that, what is Goal 9? Goal 9 is the statewide planning goal for economic development, and it requires cities and counties to go through the economic opportunities analysis, or what we call the EOA. It's a planning process to identify future growth, future employment growth, economic trends, our target industries, those jobs that we really want to target and have here in Sherwood, and the land needs for future employment growth. So we look at the economic forecast for the 20-year planning period through the EOA. We do an inventory and evaluate our land supply. Then we formulate any new policies and action items. Through this process, we didn't need to formulate any new policies, but we did include kind of an action strategy at the end of the EOA document for us to move forward with. And since we didn't have to formulate any new goals or policies, we didn't need to actually update our goals and policies in our comprehensive plan. So in this EOA update, we looked at our economic trends, our target industries, our employment land needs, our capacity, that's our supply of the vacant and redevelopable employment land within the city, and our planning area. And then we reconciled between our employment growth, how much we're gonna grow, and that land needs supply to see if we have a deficit for employment lands. So with that, we looked, and I'm not going to go into very much depth into all of this because it's in the report document, but we looked at several different economic trends. At the national level, we looked at the GDP, we discussed with our technical advisory committee kind of the growth of online shopping and the impacts that it's had. And then also increased automation and the impacts that has had at the regional and local levels. On the regional level, we know that the state of Oregon has had at the regional level, we know that the region has had strong growth in construction and professional business services. And then Washington County has seen some pretty robust employment growth, and it remains consistent as well. As far as Sherwood goes, the city, we've actually have outperformed Washington County in terms of growth over the last decade. The average rate of employment here in Sherwood has been roughly around 3.8% from 2010 to 2019, prior to the pandemic.
We've seen employment growth in retail trade, constructions, and food services and healthcare. Our employee wages in Sherwood are a bit lower than the counties, and that's just because we have a younger workforce here in Sherwood. We see a lot of those, we see more service sector jobs. And then we also know that more residents commute out of Sherwood for work. And looking kind of at that commute pattern, we know, and this is just census data, but roughly like 824 people live and work here in Sherwood. Roughly 9,000, a little over 9,000 people are commuting out of the city of Sherwood for work. And then roughly a little over 5,500 are commuting in to Sherwood for work. And then, the city, we have recognized, council has recognized that we need a better housing to employment balance. And that's going to be beneficial to the community because it really creates a more diversified tax base. And Jerry Johnson, who's also on the line with us tonight, our consultant who helped us with this project, he kind of took a look at fiscal revenue profiles for different cities around the region and found that cities with greater employment to workforce ratios have higher per capita general funds, additional revenues. And we also know that it's a higher cost to generally serve residential uses relative to, employment uses, employment-based uses. So the city, we are expected to transition away from a bedroom community sometime between 2035 and 2042, but that could be even lessened if we continue to grow and promote jobs here in Sherwood and get that employment growth. Our target industries. So our target industries didn't change from our last EOA analysis. We are really heavily focused on advanced manufacturing and technology, clean tech, machine manufacturing. Bruce Coleman, our economic development managers here, I'm sure he can probably touch on some of those high-paying, high-quality jobs.
Want to do that now?
Sure.
So members of the council, mayor, members of the council, we are very, very focused on the growth of high technology companies in Sherwood. I think you can see that we've already made progress in that regard when you go west of 124th on Tualatin and Sherwood Road. That entire 500,000 square foot development that Trammell Crow built is almost entirely occupied by technology related companies, and we've been very much have indicated that to the developers and the industrial brokers who are working this market, that's really what we're looking for. Semiconductors, certainly other kinds of advanced manufacturing. If you look at the companies that are already recently in the community, Lam Research is one of the top 4 semiconductor companies in the world. DW Fritz is in automation manufacturing products. NSI Manufacturing, a German-based company, is in semiconductors and clean tech and other areas. And that's kind of what the market is sort of seeing in Sherwood as we go out and work with our partners to encourage this kind of development to happen in the community.
Thanks, Bruce. So we did our forecast of employment and land needs, and there's a whole methodology within the report about this analysis and what went in to compute the employment forecast. But I'm just going to hit on a couple of notes. So we took a relook at our employment forecast. Our last employment forecast in the 2021 EOA, I think, was roughly about 1.8%. But we know over the past couple of years, our employment growth has been higher than that. So we've even outpaced the Metro's outlook for employment in Sherwood. And so there's kind of 3 different scenarios that we looked at for our employment forecast. The first one is the Safe Harbor forecast, which was a 2% annual average growth rate. The second one was the Sherwood Trend forecast, which we looked at how much Sherwood has been growing over, historically, over the past 10 years. And then the third employment forecast is what we call the adjusted employment forecast. And so we really talked to our technical advisory committee who helped us with this project. And our technical advisory committee was made up of, we had our state DLCD economic development specialists, their goal 9 specialists on our TAC. We had brokers. We had, yes,
Okay.
please.
So we had Greater Portland Inc. was a member, and they're the regional economic development marketing entity that brings companies from the Bay Area or what have you up to this area. We had a representative of the industrial brokerage community, a very active industrial broker who really does understand the market here and the dynamics of the market here. We had an industrial appraiser who's also a resident of the area, of the community. We had experienced developer like Trammell Crow, which does products Europe and the United States that have now, in our case, attracted Lamb Research and others to the community. We had NAOP. NAOP is the industrial and commercial developers and commercial real estate industry trade association. We had the Chamber of Commerce was represented. We had a whole slew of folks that really provided, I think, good technical input into the process of knowing and understanding what the market is here and what the future market is going to be in an area that has, in the Greater Portland region, that has a very limited amount of employment land.
So with conversations with our TAC, we kind of landed on using the adjusted employment forecast of 3.2% annual growth rate. And that would lead us over the 20-year planning forecast of obtaining a little bit more than 8,000 jobs, 8,280 jobs over the forecasted period. So doing our land needs forecast for employing all those people, we did another scenario to forecast that land needs. So we allocated, and these are kind of just the general steps, we allocated employment sector into building typologies, then we converted that space using estimates of the typical square footage for each building typology. And then we finally considered the characteristics of building types and then the amount of land that is needed for that building type to get to a land need. But first, this first step here, we allocated employment growth to the standard building typologies. And so you can see this figure is the distribution of employment space by type in the city of Sherwood, UGB. And with the total number of jobs, a little over 8,000, we see that we're going to grow the most in general industrial and office and flex building park. And then we looked at the change in employment allocated by building type. And then you can also see here that the net change is we're going to see the more growth in the general industrial, flex, and building park, as well as office. And that flex building park has a lot of like manufacturing and distribution uses as well. So then the next step is to really get to that land demand analysis, and this tells us how much land is needed for those building types and job types. And so I'm just going to get down to the nuts and bolts here. We are looking at a total of 485 roughly net acres are required for our job growth over the planning period. And then we looked at all the different factors to get to the net acres for each one, and the model showed that Sherwood will need about 143 acres of employment land for the next 5 years. So this is the short year scenario here. Our next step was doing the buildable lands inventory, and we updated our buildable lands inventory, and we took out roughly another 41 acres of land in that inventory. So The results here show that Sherwood has 956 total acres in commercial industrial plan designations, but of that 956 acres in the UGB, about 520 acres, or about roughly 54%, are in the classification with no development capacity. We have 233 acres, or about roughly 24%, are constrained, and only 208 acres are actually buildable land with development capacity. All right, and then this is actually one of my favorite tables in the analysis. This table identifies lot size by plan designation and buildable acres, and you can get a lot of information actually out of this table here, because we always talk about what needs do employers have. The employers that we are trying to attract, our target industries, really need those large buildable lots. And this is telling us that we don't have any lots in Sherwood that are between 10 and 50 acres, and we don't even have any lots that are greater than 50 acres. So this is pretty important as we move forward. So this is our short-term land supply for our Goal 9 requirement, and the results show that Sherwood has about 24 acres of buildable commercial land, and in the short supply of land, we have about 94 acres of buildable industrial land, and that's on about 125 tax lots, and that's the 5-year forecast.
So it's sort of hard to, wrap your head around 94 acres on 125 lots.
Highly parcelized.
It's not viable land for any kind of, not any kind of target industry that the city is looking for. Those small lots can be used for contract storage, they can be used for other types of things, but to get the higher paying jobs that the city council is seeking, we're going to need semiconductors, advanced manufacturing, those kinds of technology type jobs that do produce high quality jobs, family wage jobs.
And that gets to my first bullet actually on the slide. We have a limited inventory of available sites to accommodate employment uses.
Can I ask a follow-up question about that 125 lots leading to 90 acres? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around that too. It's less, obviously it's about a average of 2/3 or 3/4 of an acre per lot. Like, are many of these contiguous, or are they all just spread out all over the place? And why do we have all these tiny lots zoned industrial?
There's some contiguous property, but that's even a challenge. I mean, at most we have contiguous lots that are pretty much in the 9 acre along the Dalkey Lane corridor, that area, under multiple ownerships. And there's no way for us to require it to be assembled, but you cannot really develop some of these uses on a 9 acre lot, quite frankly. You need to have some consolidation of the properties.
One 9 acre contiguous of a bunch of little lots.
Why do we have so many tiny lots zoned industrial? I guess it's a question for another day, but
Pretty
it's
typical
interesting.
in the Portland region, quite frankly. That's one of the challenges of attracting more technology to the Portland region.
Yeah, it's a common request that mayors and other cities are making of Metro and the state is help with how do you bring all those plats together to make a project come together, but it's very difficult. Yeah.
All right, so our 20-year forecast of employment land need. So this last slide here on this table is showing us that we have a deficit of about 277 acres for employment land over our 20-year planning period.
I know where a lot is.
That first bullet there, I just talked about that, but the city, we should continue to monitor our sites that are 10 acres and larger to ensure that there is sufficient opportunities for small to mid-sized businesses to locate within Sherwood.
A quick question on that last slide.
Yes.
What's our deficit over 5 years? You had us earlier, was it 24?
We had our short-term,
I can answer that. It's 23.9 total acres is the aggregate deficit.
Awesome, thanks.
We haven't received any public testimony on the EOA. We did send it out for our agencies to review. We posted notice of this ordinance.
What kind of feedback did you get from the other agencies?
Well, DLCD, I mean, we work closely with the Department of Land Conservation at the state, and they were a member of the TAC, and I think they were very supportive. I mean, my interpretation, being somewhat new to Oregon, is they were pretty supportive of the process. We've also been working with Metro. Metro understands exactly what we're doing. We didn't get a comment letter from Metro.
We didn't get a formal comment letter from Metro, but we actually incorporated some language into the report stating why we didn't use their regional forecast. And that's because we've already exceeded their forecast rate within the last couple of years for employment growth in Sherwood.
But they didn't object.
No, they did not.
Good. That's new.
Yep, again, I'm really pleased with the report, so.
Are there any things that Metro or Salem could do that would help us to consolidate any? I mean, are there incentives or other things that can say, hey, if you guys put your lots together, we'll buy it at a premium so that we can?
Well, let me try. I mean, obviously the legislature has been looking. They adopted Senate Bill 4. They've been looking at Senate Bill 5. Senate Bill 4 is for semiconductor development because Oregon is in a very, very competitive battle, and I don't think we're quite as competitive as Texas or Arizona or a lot of upstate New York is getting more semiconductor than this area. So that's for SB 4. Then SB 5, I understand that because of the issues in Salem right now is really the incentives, a lot of the incentives, and that's going to require that both parties, I think, get together in Salem and be able to consider the kind of incentives that could be available for the growth of advanced manufacturing. So it's not just semiconductors, it's advanced technology manufacturing that's at stake here in the greater Portland area and in Sherwood in particular.
Yeah, and outside of incentives, I mean, we're dealing with private property. So, and you don't condemn property for commercial projects. So I think the best thing we can do, well, yeah, there's always an exception, right?
Well,
but the best thing you can do is, and I think Metro and Salem can help with this, it's about networking, connecting people, building the relationships with all those property owners, connecting them with developers to try to put something together. And that's exactly what happened on Oregon Street, right? You know, and we connected all those folks and we were able to get a project going. But it's private property. So it's a challenge.
No, that's fine, Bruce. I was just going to say it's private property, but there's oftentimes a dollar amount where the incentive says, hey, if you do this project, you know, we can make it worth your time.
Just a matter of where the dollar amount's coming from.
Yeah, that's
right.
Mr. Mayor, I have a point of order and a suggestion.
Yes.
I believe we need a motion to go past 9 o'clock.
I actually made a note.
Oh,
yeah.
And second of all, in relation to that, and given that we have another public hearing, my suggestion is once we get done with the presentation, we hold our deliberation till the second reading on this topic, just in the sake of time.
I am fine with that. So can I have a motion to extend our meeting past 9 o'clock for, let's give it another 45 minutes? 9:45? 10? Let's do 10 to be safe. Okay.
I'll make a motion to extend the city council public meeting to 10 p.m.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of extending the meeting till 10 p.m., say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey.
All right.
I like to target 9:30, but.
Motion passes, regardless of some. So so I like Doug's idea. I think we can close out the discussion or public hearing on this, or discussion at this point, and we'll hold it over to the next meeting. Did you have something else?
I do want to mention that Jerry Johnson is on the line, so if you do have any technical questions tonight about the analysis, he can answer them.
Oh.
I have no questions for them.
technical.
Thank you, Jerry.
Well done on the report.
All right, so we are moving on.
Mr. Mayor, can we get a
Yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess for a bio break for everybody, and we'll come back and tackle the next ordinance. Thanks. Are we still live recording? We're back. Awesome. All right, we are back from our short recess, and just real quickly here before we close out ordinance 2023-006, I am going to open up the public hearing or for public comments. Did we have any public comments? Okay. And then any in the audience in that ordinance?
The previous one that we just...
No. And any online? All right, I'm going to close the public meeting, public comment. Gosh, it's
Public hearing.
I'm getting punchy here. And we will move on to the next ordinance.
Anytime we start the public hearing.
Yeah. All right, so ordinance 2023-007, which is adopting the Sherwood Camping Code. And we have Ryan. Actually, you're going to be covering for Ryan tonight, I take it. Is that correct, Keith? Okay.
Sorry, we're just adjusting our...
It's all good.
Apologize for the technical difficulties, Mayor.
All right. We know what's going on with the lights, don't we?
Like 9 o'clock hit and they all went down.
Yeah, it just shifts right into mood lighting, 9 o'clock.
So if you're falling asleep out there, we can't sell. It's all right.
Just having some technical difficulties. Give us a moment.
It's all good. We're gonna get punchy.
In the meantime, we have our interim city attorney over here, Josh Soper, who used to be our city attorney, and he's filling in for us tonight, so thank you for coming.
Happy to be here. And at the next city council meeting, Ryan also will be missing that one. I unfortunately have a conflict, so my colleague Emily Madazar from our office will be covering that one.
Well, it's nice to have you back for a little bit.
Happy to be here.
And it's his fault this meeting is running so late. The Mayor Rosner, just for clarity. We're not taking the blame.
Never would have gone this late under the prior mayor regime.
Exactly. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Probably true.
We haven't had long meetings in a while, so this
That's
is rare.
We got a lot of stuff to get done.
I'll take a printout.
Yeah, I can do it without a presentation if you guys are comfortable with that.
Yeah, but just start the discussion. If he finds it, we can pop it in, but sure you have your notes in front of you.
Mayor and Council, Keith Campbell, City Manager. I'm happy to fill in tonight as we discuss ordinance 2023-007, adopting the Sherwood Camping Code, Chapter 9.54. So just a little background on this. In 2013, the City of Sherwood adopted ordinance 2013-008, prohibiting camping in the City of Sherwood. In 2019, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on Martin v. Boise that homeless persons cannot be punished for sleeping outside on public property in the absence of adequate alternatives or unless the law imposes reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on the regulated activities in the public space. In 2020, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on Blake v. Grants Pass that persons experiencing homelessness are entitled to take necessary minimal measures to keep themselves warm and dry while sleeping outside. The court also held that cities violate the Eighth Amendment if they punish a person for the mere act of sleeping outside or for sleeping in their vehicles at night when there is no place in the city for them to go. That's the background. Coming forward, in 2022, the Oregon legislature enacted House Bill 3115, requiring cities to allow community members to sleep and rest on public property with restrictions when no shelter beds are accessible. Cities may regulate time, place, and manner in in which sleeping and resting occurs so long as the regulations are objectively reasonable based on the totality of the circumstances as applied to all stakeholders, including persons experiencing homelessness. The law allows cities to enact reasonable time, place, and manner regulations aiming to preserve the ability of the cities to manage public spaces effectively for the benefit of the entire community. Sherwood is required to implement House Bill 3115 by July 1st of 2023. The City of Sherwood had work sessions on 3 occasions, March 21st, April 18th, and May 16th. Before you is Ordinance 2023-007, which is the general outcome of these work sessions, with a draft of the ordinance containing the following time, place, and manner restrictions. I have my presentation, so let me pause and bring this up. Background on 3115, the state mandated updates to the Sherwood Camping Code. So time, 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. Manner, no open flames, no gas heat, no structures other than tents or tarps, no public defecation or urination, no accumulation of trash or rubbish, no digging in the ground or removing vegetation. Place restrictions include institutional public zone, residential zone and residential structures plus 50 feet, within 1,000 feet of any school, within all of Sherwood School District walk zone, sensitive areas or vegetated corridors regulated by Clean Water Services, any area that reduces sidewalk width below 4 feet, within 500 feet of the Sherwood Police Department, within the Old Town District. Also, this ordinance has a, notwithstanding the place restriction listed above, the city manager may, after consultation with the council, determine an appropriate place for camping upon city property. After taking into account all of the place restrictions, before you is a map, you'll see all the areas in yellow. Go back to that place restrictions. Every place that is not in yellow would qualify as a potential place, notwithstanding that condition that we listed of the city manager with consultation with the council to be able to pick another location.
And Keith, just to be clear, this does not apply to private property.
Correct.
Right, and when you say areas that are not in yellow, you're talking about these little green squares, correct? Okay.
Private property can, at their own choosing, allow for homeless people, but that would be conditioned based on what the requirements are for those. So the state mandate to comply with House Bill 315 remains applicable even if Sherwood does not have a large population of people experiencing homelessness. Staff has endeavored to draft a code that provides as much flexibility to council as possible while maintaining compliance with 3115. We don't anticipate any financial impacts at this time, and we recommend that a second hearing be held at June 20th to discuss this further. With that, I'd be happy and have staff here to answer any questions.
Just to clarify from the mayor's comments, the way I look at this, that the areas that would be allowed are the ones in blue on this map.
Correct. There's essentially 3 areas in blue, that four areas in blue.
Right there. So the green, which is mostly parks and trails, are not allowed. And the yellow is not allowed.
1 in the far west, and then 3 in the northeast.
So the map is shown, again, the yellow is all the restrictions. The blue teal color is publicly owned property. So that's all city-owned property. And then if the yellow is over the blue, which it is in most cases, it's off limits unless city manager determines otherwise. And then I think you were pointing to just a few properties in the northern area that you can see as that blue without the yellow on top of it. And those would be the areas that are owned by the city of Sherwood and don't have the place restrictions. And the most viable location is the one in the top right with the white box. That's the one with the most viable access, and that's why we're seen as the most viable option.
And when you say at discretion, city manager, in consultation with city council.
One of the reasons we thought that was a good way to go is we want some flexibility as we annex lands. We might have better places to make designated areas available, and this gives us the ability to change it over time.
As well as depending upon legislation and facts on the ground of the population that needs help.
Just clarifying question for audience, those watching, because there was a lot of discussion on social media where at our last work session, we had talked about possibly making it next, the empty property next to Cannery Square, across from Cannery Row Apartments. That is now not viable.
Currently, as this is drafted, part of the restrictions would be, the place restrictions would be to exclude the old town.
Exclude the Old Town area. Okay.
This ordinance, as it is presented, isn't necessarily designating that square up at the
Nope.
top. Okay.
Nope.
While I totally appreciate the staff work and trying to find a place, that just feels like we're saying here, you don't belong here, you need to be out on the outskirts, and that does not feel equitable or right to me. I understand the fear that goes along with this whole discussion and homelessness and such, but what I personally would like to see is that we go ahead and rescind, we can adopt this ordinance, but we work more on finding a location. I love the fact that since the last time I was here, there's been that added sentence about at discretion or having further conversation. I can't remember how it's written, but I do appreciate that being written into the ordinance. Thank you so much.
You know, to that end, there's potential of finding private property that we can lease and stuff like that, that potentially might be very viable, but having to get something in by July 1st, we have to move quickly here.
Yeah, and that's why I would rather go ahead and rescind and not try to find a specific space. I think we've got partners out there that could help us with some of these solutions, but again, I think the work that's been done so far has been
When you say
well-intentioned.
rescind, what do you mean by that?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm using the wrong word, but go ahead and, because we have to either adopt time, place, manner, or get rid of our existing regulations. So getting
Gotcha.
rid of I'm sorry, I'm not very eloquent tonight, so getting rid of the existing regulations.
Gotcha. Any other comments or questions?
I don't have questions for him, I have discussion.
Okay, well, let's stick with questions right now. First reading. Yeah. No questions, Daniel? Okay, great. So at this point, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. And do we have any comments?
Mayor and council, in addition to these that you have there, Mayor, there was an email that you all received.
Great.
That will be in part of the record as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Sylvia. All right, so we're opening the hearing for our public hearing for public comment. I've got 3 up here. Just a reminder, everyone gets 4 minutes, and it's a chance to express your views and comments. And again, we don't necessarily engage in a lot of Q&A during these sessions. So, yeah, and this is the first of 2 public hearings. The council could, on a unanimous level, vote for this tonight, but we generally don't do that unless it's truly emergency and we have more than enough time to go ahead and have a second public hearing on this. So with that in mind, Braden King.
That'd be what I'd say, dude. It's fun to do it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming out tonight, though. Appreciate it. Marty Crowder, did I get that right? Hey, Marty, come on up. And state your name and your address. And green light's already on, so you're ready to go.
My name is Marty Crowder. I live on 23775 Southwest Everest Court in Sherwood, just at the end of Sunset. I previously attended Washington County on this. Is the time allowed for temporary camping only when the shelters are full, as I saw stated in 3115, or when I look at the Unicode 9.54, I don't see that particular, so I'm just trying to understand, okay? And how often are the shelters full? Say like last month in May, were they full a lot of times, or are they at all? Or versus January, was there a lot of need for the homeless population? And just so you know, I tend to think of the homeless situation as two groups. One is by situation, they have had medical issues, domestic issues, and they're in a bad way. And then two, the one that most of me and my neighbors are concerned about tend to be the homeless, I'd say by choice, via drug use, and they can't hold a job. And there tends to be a lot more trouble opportunities in the second group than the first. Question I have for all of you would be, how is Sherwood coordinating their homeless activities with surrounding cities? So in this case, what I would be concerned about would be if Sherwood is viewed by the homeless population as being more lenient, then we could see, who knows, flash mobs of homeless people concentrating more here rather than someplace else. So that may or may not be associated with what you had a few options about up to 15 days and beyond 15 days or whatever, but you got to have some flexibility too on things. And related question is, what is Sherwood doing to encourage building of affordable housing? It was very good for me to listen to 2023-005 and see that whole discussion. So I see that on the one hand. On the flip side, I see the big developments of the higher-end homes over in Denali and down in Brookman. So I don't know if there is a corresponding increase in high-density affordable housing also taking place at the same time. I certainly can speak for the rest of the group that we don't want to see our city dramatically change as a result of all this, and would tend to be a big concern. And we don't want to have Ty's team focusing on a different population and not being able to protect us in other ways. That's all the questions or the thoughts I have.
Thank you. Awesome, thank you very much. And I have a feeling when we get into our discussion mode of this that we'll probably be addressing some of that. Next on the list is Steve Robertson. Hi, Steve. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
Steve Robertson, 17156 Southwest Stellar, Sherwood. I would just like to real quickly say, I was very concerned that it was perhaps going to be Cannery Row area, and I thought, no, that's awful. So I'm happy to hear that's kind of out. And I do support the location, if I'm correct. It's Sherwood Park as a 99 and Roy Rogers Road area, I think is what that was. So I just would want to hope that we are aware of the impact this could have on the community as a whole. We've all seen what happens when there's no regulations. So it sounds like we're kind of on top of that. I'm pleased to hear that. And that's really all I have to say. Is just be aware of the impact it can have on communities, neighborhoods, houses that are next door, et cetera, and to enforce whatever the rules are, to enforce them as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Is there anyone else that wants to give public comment tonight? And Ty, could you see if we have anybody online? Thank you. All right. So it looks like that's it for public comment. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time, and we'll go to discussion. Yes.
Just to address the shelter question, I believe it's my understanding through our conversation on this before, because we don't have a shelter in Sherwood, we're not allowed to tie our regulation to shelters in other jurisdictions. So because of that, we have to allow camping in some time, place, or manner specified by the rules that we've been talking about every day of the week.
And just to add a little bit more kind of nuance on that, so the Supreme Court there was the Boise case where it made all the cities had to start looking at this. Grants Pass tried to finagle a rule and use some clever language, and the Ninth Circuit struck that rule down. Unfortunately, when the Ninth Circuit struck it down, they said that we have to provide a place within the city. We can't send them outside the city. Now, I think their intent was they wanted cities to focus on the problem. The problem for us is, I would rather be partnering with Tualatin and Tigard and cities around us to find more higher level services and places that we can put these folks, and do all the wraparound services that they need so they can get out of that situation. But unfortunately, our hands are tied. We have to provide a place within the city. That doesn't mean at a different level we're not going to continue to work with our regional partners and our neighbors, but that's kind of how we got to this situation of having to provide a place here.
And to answer, oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to answer the questioner about whether or not the shelters are full during the cold weather seasons or when the shelters are open. And yes, they're full at that particular point in time. In Washington County, there are shelters that are specifically for women and then for families. But as far as shelters that are open all year round for the general homeless population, there is not. However, Washington County is building some affordable housing units and some housing that would be temporary, and then wraparound services that will help address some of this solution, but they're not here in Sherwood. They're in Hillsborough and the Beaverton area.
And this, if someone's willing, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim.
I was just gonna, also, it's my understanding that even if we did have a shelter, that shelter would have to have no barriers for people to stay there. In other words, we couldn't say, you can't stay here if you're intoxicated, you can't stay, there could be no barrier whatsoever, which a lot of shelters have barriers for people to be able to stay in. So that doesn't pertain to Sherwood at this point because we don't have any shelters, but there's that other issue as well.
I think that, as several people have pointed out, this is obviously a very complex issue that we're struggling with. We had the chief at all of our work meetings as well to make sure that we weren't tying his hands and his team's hands for getting people the services that they need and pointing them in the right direction, et cetera. But, sometimes it is, one solution doesn't fit all. And so we are trying to check the box that the state has mandated that we check, but we're also trying to address it these other ways through the affordable housing, through partnering with other organizations. We talked to the fire department that was here tonight. They have mental health teams. We looked at funding additional partnerships between the police and a mental health professional and different things. We really are trying to do it, but we also have a limited piggy bank here, right? And so we can't do everything that we would want to do. So I feel good that we're trying to make progress on this, but this is a massive problem that needs to be addressed by not just Little Sherwood. So
it's a big problem. And it's one of the folks that gave public comment made a really important point, about what are the cities doing around us, and we did have a lot of conversations about that. Not just as we discussed this, we reviewed all the ordinances that other cities are putting in place. As you may know, Ted Wheeler in Portland's looking at putting designated camping areas in place. So there's concerns about, it's like balloon art, right? You squeeze it in one place, it pops out in another place. So regionally, we did take a close look at that. Most of the cities around us are going to some form of designated areas. Big question about what the county's going to do at this point, because there is some property adjacent to the city that a resident might look at that and think that's city property, but it's actually county property. So we're not quite sure where the county is on some of this stuff, but it's important that we have an approach that doesn't cause doesn't upset the fruit basket, right? We can still manage the problem.
Yeah, so I don't know, on the particular ordinance and the way, or the current state of it, I think we were all pretty dissatisfied through through where the product was at the end of our last work session on this topic. After 3 or 4 work sessions, we're all begrudgingly, we know as was said, this decision was not something we chose. It's been forced upon us by the state, and we're doing our best with what we have to do to mitigate, the concerns that all the people in the community have are all ones a lot of us share, and our neighbors share, and our family share, and we've talked about it. And so I'm really, really pleased with the way the staff had gone back to the drawing board and come up with a solution to me that is much more acceptable than where we were at the end of our last work session. So kudos to you and your team, and I feel like this is something we can pass and put in place in the interim while we continue to search for a more permanent solution as time evolves.
Yeah. Speaking with the police chief during our work sessions, we were informed that although we do have homeless people in Sherwood, we don't really see them. I don't see them as a resident here. They keep to themselves, and it isn't considered a problem here at this point. I am in agreement with Renee that I would be in favor of just rescinding the current ordinance that we have right now on the ban on camping for Sherwood. I think that if it ends up being an issue at a later point, we can, obviously make another ordinance to support that. But we do not currently have a problem here. We don't have a transit center here to, congregate people, which is typically seen like in Hillsborough or even Tualatin, Tigard area. And the location that we have chosen in the northeast portion of Sherwood now, if I were to be homeless here in Sherwood, that is so far away from a city center, there's nothing out there but just land. And although that legally is a spot, public property that we can have as a camping zone, it doesn't feel like the compassionate place to put homeless people in our city.
So if I'm understanding right, you would suggest just repealing our current camping ordinance and not going with what's being proposed with the yellow constrained areas and whatnot?
That is correct. The time would remain the same, but the place.
So leaving
People can camp on any public.
people and camp on
Correct.
any public.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm definitely not for that.
So I think the way I'll throw in my 2 cents on that. We have, I've done several ride-alongs with our police department, and they are amazing in how they deal with homeless situation in Sherwood. They know the folks that are out there. They have a nexus. Most of the homeless we have in Sherwood have a nexus to our community, meaning they have a cousin, a brother, or someone in the community. They also know, because they know those people, they deal with them compassionately. But they have a tool right now. Right now they have a tool that says, so if someone does get out of hand, because we have a camping ban, they can use that tool to move that person or deal with them appropriately and in a compassionate manner. So just lifting the current ordinance takes that tool away. So I think it makes it harder on our police department to deal with problems. I think, with that in mind, I think I like the current solution. I like the fact that we're creating flexibility so we can move these designated areas as conditions on the ground change and as we have more opportunities with annexations and those types of things. But at the end of the day, I still want our PD to have tools, right? And, we have lots of laws on the book. It doesn't mean we enforce every single one every day. The police department hands out warnings over a ticket a lot, and I fully expect that they will continue to deal with their friends in the homeless community in a compassionate way, but I do believe they have to have those tools so they can be effective.
I'm good.
So, any other comments or questions? No?
Yeah, I
I was just gonna say one last question. I mean, I know we've said it, that we've had multiple work sessions on this, and we came out of that last one a couple weeks ago not feeling great, which is why probably most of you have seen me. I had it on many social media sites going like, please give us your opinion. We want to hear from you. And I had quite a few residents send me private messages about, what about this spot? And I would send it to staff, and I'd say, what is this spot that they're, you know, and just appreciated the input, because this is a big deal, and it's our hands are tied, and we're trying to do it right, by keeping our residential areas, our school walk zones, our schools, our businesses, just trying to be thoughtful in that manner. So thank you all for who's come out, who's emailed us, public testimony. Appreciate it.
Just want to add one more thing. It is a big deal. It is a very big deal. And I know that there are a number of families who are living in their cars so that their kids can go to the Sherwood schools. Again, I understand the fear. I understand not wanting our community to become like Portland. I'm understanding of the ordinance. I'm understanding of wanting to come up with something to help give the police tools. I think what I'm asking for is, instead of responding out of fear, out of quick decision, that we take the time to find a solution that would be beneficial to our homeless families who need that support.
Thank you, Renee. Anybody else? So, I want to extend my thanks to everyone who showed up tonight. You may not know this, but normally the only people sitting out there are staff. So it's great to see the community come out and support their peers that are giving testimony and support their community. So thank you, all of you, and you're welcome back anytime.
We have a lot of openings on boards and commissions.
And we do have a lot of openings on boards and commissions if you guys are interested.
We got some.
There always seems to be a few, at least a few.
Senior
advisory board members.
Yeah.
Go
So.
online, apply. Serve your community.
So anyway, so I think we'll hold this over to our next meeting. I believe it's scheduled for the next council meeting. Is that correct?
20th.
So 20th. And we are going to move forward in the agenda. City manager report. Yes.
Can I make a suggestion after the city manager report that we suspend council comments, close the meetings, go directly to our next work session?
I'm fine with that as long as everybody else is.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll do three quick things here. Ribbon cutting for the Robin Hood Plaza has been scheduled for next Wednesday, June 14th at 4 p.m. So we invite the public to come and participate and celebrate opening of our new plaza. Very excited about that. Sherwood Street of Dreams is coming. Street of Dreams is coming to Sherwood. The Sherwood Denali Summit will be the host of this year's Street of Dreams. The event is scheduled from July 29th to August 20th. So look forward to more information on that. And finally, as an American, as a history buff, I just want to say today marks the 79th anniversary of D-Day. So I wanted to give my thoughts and remembrance to all of the servicemen and women who were part of that event. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
4 o'clock on Wednesday. Do you want to just briefly talk about the memorial we just dedicated? Kristen, do you want to talk about it?
We did what? When?
I was there.
I was there.
Hello. So on Saturday, I was about to say Wednesday, I just say Wednesday. On Saturday, we had the rededication at Veterans Memorial Park. Several of you were there, 4 of you were there actually, so thank you very much for being there and being present. It was a great partnership between the city and the Legion. They served hot dogs. We had a beautiful ceremony. Mayor Rosner did an excellent job, so we appreciate your kind words. Any questions?
I was there. There were 5 of us.
Oh, 5 of you, I'm sorry.
That was great. Great job by everyone involved, city staff, the planning committee, American Legion input, Veterans It's beautiful.
Yeah, it turned out so nice, and there's this brick program.
Yes, oh, thank you for the reminder. So we are starting a buy a brick program where you can purchase a brick for $125. And there are 3 lines on the brick where you could put name, rank, branch, or you could put dates of service as well. This is for anybody who has served or is currently serving, living or deceased, and you do not have to be a resident of Sherwood. So if it's somebody who moved to Sherwood later in life or started in Sherwood, they're welcome to purchase a brick. There are people who actually like to go around and purchase bricks at different places around the state, so we would be open to that as well. We have quite a few bricks. So if anybody's interested in getting more information about that program, they can contact Lance Gilligan. He's collecting the forms, and we'll be installing them in batches. So once we get like 40 of them, we'll go ahead and pop out 40 bricks and get them installed.
Awesome.
I had a question about that. The bricks that are in the ground right now, they're not going to be etched. It'll be separate bricks that.
Those ones will actually be removed, is my understanding.
Okay.
And there'll be some sort of a placeholder put in. We'll take those ones and have them etched and engraved.
So it will be the ones that you're walking
It'll
on.
be the ones that are
Okay.
there, and then they'll be brought back in.
Okay.
So we'll just need to decide where we want to start in the middle and work our way out.
Okay, thank you.
It's going to be an amazing program. And I know I said it the other day, but thank you and your staff for all the hard work. I think it was, 4 years in the making?
Yes, it's been a long process.
Yeah.
We received approval in 2020, March of 2020, and then there was delays, but this was actually the second time that we've applied for the grant, so it's probably even longer than that.
Yeah. Wrangling all the funds is always the hard part, but thank you for everything, and pass that along to your staff.
And I do just want to acknowledge Craig Sheldon and Harry Bannister, who Harry served as the project manager, and he did an excellent job on this project, so we appreciate their hard work.
All right.
I missed the ribbon cutting, but I walked over there today, and it looks phenomenal. They did an excellent job. So.
They had hot dogs.
Hot dogs, yeah, they went through about 75 hot dogs, so they were pleased.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yeah, I'm good there.
Let's make sure, you have the agenda.
I have the agenda in front of me.
I don't have my computer open. You have it.
So
Oh,
if everyone agrees, we're just gonna skip council comments tonight, and I'm gonna close out the meeting, and we'll head over for our work session.